prevailing paradigm, or the prevailing theory about Vietnam, is generally that prehistoric people existed in Vietnam for hundreds of thousands of years. They were not developed like humans today. And then perhaps around 1000 BC, we get the emergence of some of the first cultures of people who were sophisticated enough to build musical instruments, drums, maybe practice warfare and spread their culture. However, what we need to be careful for and what we need to look out for now as we enter the museum is particularly the years 3000 BC. What was happening in 3000 BC around Vietnam, and particularly southern Vietnam, because Vietnam is not the story of one people, it's a story of at least two distinct groups, the southern and northern people. The Vietnamese are the northerners. The southern people are much more closely linked to Cambodia. We are today on the hunt for those people. What we find in the museum proves to be out of date. Rather than the Archaeo or Funan civilizations, research published in 2011 suggests an older common ancestor, at least 4,000 years old. But I would suggest that if it emerges, or the evidence of it emerges, over 4,000 years ago, it's likely to be much older. We have to remember that up until 10,000 years ago, Southeast Asia was connected as part of Sundaland. There's no reason to suggest connections between these people stopped due to the rising sea levels. In fact, the evidence clearly suggests trade and communication of ideas flourished. The migration of Hinduism and Sanskrit from India are clearly evidence for this. Behind me is the Vietnamese History Museum, and it tells a story of a narrative of development, of a culture which gradually fragmented and pieced together, fought against oppressors, the Chinese, the French and the Americans, before emerging now as the Vietnam we know today. But in fact, the story is much more complicated than that. In fact, the story is not of one group of people, but is the story of many. If we go back 500 years, the land I'm standing on today would not have been part of a Vietnam, it would have been part of a Khmer kingdom. The Khmer kingdom, which had its capital city centered in Angkor Wat.